You're listening to the ESO Network, your station for all things geek.
Hi, we're Enterprise Splating, the podcast where we explain Star Trek Enterprise to each other and to you. I'm Jamie, and these are my co-hosts, Bill.
Hello.
And Maria.
Hello.
Today we're going to be talking about Season 1, Episode 11 of Star Trek Enterprise, Cold Front. However, I am the only person here who's actually watched it. It's my job to explain to my co-hosts what happened on the episode. But before we get to that, let's first talk a little bit about last week's episode. So last week, Bill told us about the episode Fortunate Son.
Yes, I did.
Maria and I finally watched it. Maria, now that you've seen it, what are your thoughts on it?
All right, guys, so I watched this episode 100%. I definitely watched it. It was about a week ago, and I remember nothing.
Mm-hmm.
I know it was boring, but I literally remember nothing about this episode. Oh, wait, it was about a cargo ship?
Yeah, it was a Travis-focused episode.
Oh, yeah.
It was a big old bucket of nothing.
I had this exact conversation last night with my spouse where we were walking to dinner and I was like, I cannot remember the episode that we literally just watched. And I was like asking him, and both of us, it took us like a good 2 minutes to remember what that episode was.
It is the science fiction equivalent of white noise. It passes through your brain, leaves no impression, but you feel squeaky clean after it. So, okay, I remember this episode having watched it twice. My impression was that Travis, who is supposed to be an adult male, comes off as an 8-year-old child in this. This episode is pitched at the level of an 8-year-old trying to explain what war is or what conflict is.
I didn't quite see it like that. Like, he didn't seem childlike to me at all. It just, to me, he just seemed like a blank slate. Like, I felt like I came out of the episode not knowing anything more than I knew about him going in or having any deeper insights into his character at all.
Right.
Yeah, I agree. I didn't really, I understand what they were trying to do with the boomers gotta stick together whole thing. Like, the guy was mad at him for leaving, but like you said, or somebody said the last time, like, that guy didn't know anything about his background, or like Travis said, like, my sister and her husband are there, it's fine. Like, he had no idea that, like, he just assumed that he just like blew up, abandoned his family.
Yeah, it was very strange.
And I assume that is, like, something they were trying to show as, like, that's the culture of the boomers, but it really didn't come through.
Yeah, and honestly, everything we learned about the boomer culture made me understand Travis less.
Less, yeah.
Because
you started at 0, and now you understand less.
Well, because, like, to me, the boomer culture kind of made sense. You have these, like, blue-collar workers that are out on this difficult job, far away from home, where they have a lot of loyalty to each other. It's very dangerous. Travis doesn't seem to have that kind of personality at all. And so it was really confusing to me that Travis has a background from that type of culture when he doesn't in any way act like he is from a culture like that. And maybe it could have been interesting if they used that as the reason why he left working on a cargo ship and decided to join Starfleet. Like, maybe he just didn't have the right personality for it.
It just wasn't him, right?
But he doesn't say that at all.
Never. At least not as far as I remember, which isn't very much. So maybe he did, and
he's not the like you said, he's not the super smart kid who grew up in, like, an industrial city and, like, he's gonna go, and his family worked really hard to send him to college so he could do this, and he comes back fundamentally changed, and they don't understand him. It's just a complete blank.
Yeah, I also feel like they spent a lot of time trying to, like, talk about technology, and the boomers were like, our ships go slow and that's just fine. We don't want to upgrade to go to have these shorter trips, and I sort of get that, but also, like, I feel like if you could do more runs, you can make more money. And
again,
I could see it as a threat to the culture.
Yeah.
Yes,
because
and
like
I
the
see
whole
that, but I
boomer
still think
culture maybe can't exist if they can just like go out and be coming back all the time. And I can definitely see how there would be some resistance to that.
right, they gotta live somewhere otherwise, right?
No, I'm sorry. I don't want to spend a lot of time defending this episode because it is a bad and boring episode. But, like, again, we talked about this with other start. Like, there are a bunch of interesting ideas that you could explore here.
That they choose not to.
But they don't explore any, like, none of these, the really bad episodes of the show that we've seen so far, explore none of these ideas.
Yeah, it seemed like a really wasted opportunity, especially considering that Travis is a character that we know so little about. It was a whole episode focused on him. I want more for him. I want more for that character. And the show doesn't seem to care about him at all.
I feel like we say this a lot, though. Like, this could have been really interesting if they had only explored this aspect that they touched on, but never actually went into. I mean, it was true about Unexpected. It was true about the Andorian incident. It was just, yeah. So it was just, it's very strange.
It's disappointing that the only three characters that the show seems to want to make fully developed three-dimensional characters are the three white characters. And then the two characters of color and I guess the fourth white character get really short what's the phrase?
Short
shrift.
It's
Shrift.
why do we?
You know what I mean. You
The
know
short
what I'm
end
trying
of
to
the
say.
stick. Sorry, was this also the episode that just fucking ended? Like, more so than most of them?
How
Yeah,
many episodes have we watched that all just ended?
No, I know, but this one, if I'm remembering, I think this is the one where I was like, when you told us it ended, I was like, you are fucking kidding me. There's no way.
Where the captain says to Archer, "Hey, are you sure you don't want that drink?"
And he says no and leaves. It's so fucked up.
Especially because I was thinking to myself during that, no, have that drink. I am so interested in this like cargo ship captain that we've barely gotten to see. He's had 2 lines because he was like sick the whole time or he was like injured.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, have that drink. This is actually interesting. This is the story that I want to see.
That maybe these two characters representing the old and the new could share a moment where maybe they could bond over. Yeah, no.
Nope, gotta go. Shit to do.
I have one tiny nitpick thing from this episode, and that is the transporter scene. So they're at the transporter, and the hunky guy, whose name I already forgot, asked Travis. Can't believe you remember. Well, now I remember because I remember you calling him like he was from the
guy.
OC, and
let's be honest, he was a hunk.
Yeah.
Let's
he was a
guy.
He was a hunky guy.
I was disappointed. I was like, you talked him up so much, and I was like, this guy isn't that hunky. He's not even that tall. I was expecting this, like, tall, square-jawed, you know. He's like a normal dude to me.
He's not quite my type, but he definitely was like, I would definitely call him hunky. But
wow. Guess that
he asked Travis.
I just learned a lot about myself in this short exchange here. Thank you both.
So hunky guy asked Travis if he'd been through the transporter and said he heard that you can briefly feel yourself at 2 different places if you go through it. And it was annoying to me because we established in the pilot that no person had ever been through the transporter before. And so as far as we know, the only people who have ever been through the transporter are the people on the Enterprise. So I don't understand why he would even think that Travis might have gone through it.
It's the first thought you have.
Also, is it possible that maybe it's been tested? Like
in the pilot, they said that no person had ever been through the transport and they didn't know what it would do.
And so maybe the guy was just theorizing.
But if you're doing that, you wouldn't say, have you been through it? You'd be like, hey, I wonder what it would be like.
Well, I I'm not even curious about. Like they know. Presumably, they said that Archer went through it. Although I don't know. I'm not defending the show. I'm not exploring any concepts of this show.
Yeah, well, Travis hasn't been through it. The only people who've been through it have been Archer and that one panicky guy, right?
Well, in Andorian Incident, they sent a couple people through.
Ah, yes.
Oh, yeah. There were a couple of security guys who went through. Yeah, fair enough. But
honestly, again, getting back to the startup culture, like I would assume that if this was a military organization, this would be like super secret, that they wouldn't talk about, what they've done. I'm assuming that Archer was posting on X, formerly known as Twitter, like, went through transporter, first person to do this, totally wild! Exclamation mark. Dancing girls emoji.
Okay.
All right. Well, now that we've got that out of the way, it's time to talk about this week's episode. Computer, what episode will we be talking about this week?
Cold Front. While Enterprise joins an alien pilgrimage to witness a religious stellar occurrence, Archer finds himself again faced against the Suliban warrior Silic.
All right, it is now time for Two Truths and a Lie. I'm going to tell you 2 truths and 1 lie.
Just so long as you get it right, unlike me last week.
Okay, I just want to say, I'm going to briefly show you guys my notes. You see all this handwritten stuff on my notes? Mm-hmm. That is because I accidentally wrote down 3 truths.
3 truths! Oops, all truths!
And then when I was going over it again, I realized it and I had to cross one out and handwrite in a new lie.
It's very easy to do that.
We pulled the wrong lever. There was an explosion at the Truth Factory.
Oops, all truths.
All right, are you guys ready?
I'm ready.
Lay it on me.
Statement 1. Archer can't figure out how to read a clock.
This is by far my favorite segment of the show.
It really is. It's great.
Episode 2. We learn that T'Pol's favorite human-made movie is Night of the Lepus.
What?
Have you guys not seen Night of the Lepus? It is a real movie, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Night
filmed in Arizona.
Lepus.
Yeah, it's like giant bunny rabbits. It's a B-horror movie with giant bunny rabbits.
And it features DeForest Kelley.
Wait, really? I don't even remember that.
Well, that's an interesting thing. That must be intentional.
Okay. All right. What's number 3?
Number 3? A time traveler spends 2 months serving Archer eggs.
Okay. All right. Let's
One of these is a lie.
Okay, let's break this down.
Archer spends how many months?
2 months. A time traveler spends two months.
Wow.
Or really, I guess, however long they've been on the Enterprise so far, which I think we're at about 2 months.
Okay.
Serving Archer eggs.
Okay. So I'm kind of amazed, Jamie, that you know Night of the Lepus, and also that's such a specific reference. Like,
yeah, that's really specific.
Okay, so Archer can't read a clock. A time traveler spends 2 months
serving Archer eggs.
And what was it about Night of the Lepus?
We learned that T'Pol's favorite human-made movie is Night of the Lepus.
That's too weird. That one's too weird. Okay, I'm going to go with T'Pol's favorite human movie is Night of the Lepus because no one who writes for this show is cool or weird enough to know Night of the Lepus. Which is a really bad movie.
Compelling argument.
That I love a lot.
I'm surprised I know that movie because I do not know a lot of bad old movies.
Archer has trouble reading a clock?
Yes. Number one, Archer can't figure out how to read a clock.
Yeah, that feels like some sort of time travel
seem to work
issue.
Together.
All right, I'm gonna go with Night of the Lepus as well.
Okay. All right, I guess we'll find out. Cold open. You guys are going to be so mad at these first words. A Suliban is attached to some weird medical machine.
We're back to the Suliban.
We're back to the Suliban.
Actually, I'm pretty happy about this because
really,
that's supposed to be the whole. I'm not, but at least there's some tie back to like some sort of ongoing.
I'm impressed the show remembered they existed.
Fair enough, yeah.
So a Suliban is attached to a weird medical machine. He's like sort of trapped on, or not like it's like a bondage situation is what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
He is speaking with the weird phasey shadow guy from the pilot episode, and we're back to everything being like echoey and phasey. Yeah.
All right, I'm bored already.
It's the temporal Cold War. Is this the cold front?
I hate it.
Yep.
I hate it.
Wonderful.
So the shadow guy tells him that he failed in his last mission, and now he's being punished by having his advanced vision removed. And then another Suliban, who's like seems like a creepy Suliban doctor, takes out a very long needle and then moves it to his eye, and then
eye stuff,
and then theme song.
Is this the music that the surgeon is playing in the background while he's doing the surgery? Time to close. Put it on.
All right, so this week's Diane Warren update of the week.
Yes.
I mentioned before a bunch of the stuff from that book about Diane Warren's involvement in the Enterprise theme song becoming the Enterprise theme song, but all of that came from other people, things that other people have said. And I want you guys to know that I have spent months now trying to find any interview that Diane Warren has ever done where somebody has asked her about Enterprise, and I cannot find anything. She famously does not do very many interviews. So as a last resort, I was like, I wonder, she's active on social media. I mainly follow her on Instagram, but it's very hard to search Instagram. So I'm like, let me try Twitter. So I did a search on Twitter to see if she has ever mentioned Enterprise or Star Trek or the song ever.
Jamie, you just got to straight up ask her. You got to go to the source.
I agree.
Maybe one day.
Oh, this is going to happen. It's fated to be.
But for now, I can tell you that twice in the past at least 12 years, she has mentioned Star Trek or Enterprise. The second time was in 2022, so only 2 years ago. On Star Trek Day, she tweeted, "In honor of hashtag Star Trek Day, my little contribution and the only Star Trek theme song ever. Thank you, Rick Berman." And she posted,
thank you, Rick Berman.
She posted a YouTube link to Russell Watson's version of Faith of the Heart.
Okay.
But the first time she mentioned it was 10 years prior to that, in 2012. The only other time that she has ever mentioned Enterprise.
Jamie, I really hope you appreciate that at some point, 100 years in the future, you are going to be cited in someone's PhD doctoral thesis.
So, someone named on Twitter @CorinneLive tweeted to Diane Warren in January 2012. Just watched Patch Adams' Faith of the Heart, amazing song. And Diane Warren clicked reply and wrote, "Thank you. It was also the only song Star Trek ever used as a theme song. In parentheses, Enterprise."
Amazing.
That's it. That's all we have, as far as I can tell, ever gotten from her about this song.
Well,
that illuminates a lot.
Does.
And that was this week's Diane Warren update of the week.
Okay.
Great update. Thank you, Jamie.
Thank you.
All right, so back to the episode. You guys, I know listeners can't see your guys' faces, but you guys do not. You guys look very apprehensive of what's going to come in this episode.
Yes, of course, because we know what's coming, and we know it's not going to be good.
Every episode of this show is like an older sibling grabbing your arm and saying, "Why are you hitting yourself? Why are you hitting yourself?" And we sit here and try to explain, "I'm not hitting myself.
I'm not hitting myself.
You're grabbing my arm and hitting me."
All right, you guys.
Okay.
So the crew is discussing the last night's movie night,
Oh, fuck.
where they watched the V horror movie, Night of the Killer Androids.
Yes.
I tricked
It was
y'all.
a trick question.
I knew Bill would know Night of the Lepus.
Oh, yeah.
And so
yeah.
I wanted to bring it up. I knew that would be a Bill thing.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
And Travis is complaining how bad the movie was. He's like, "Oh, there's 50,000 movies in the database. Like, why did they have to put on that one?"
That's some fucking balls for Star Trek Enterprise to complain about the quality of somebody else's work.
Well, it made me wonder, like, is there only one television on this whole ship? Like, why did they all
That's
have
a great question.
to
Why
go
are
to
they in the
movie
common
night?
room?
Why can't they just watch movies in their own rooms?
Well, maybe it's a morale thing. Maybe they do like a
Sure,
movie.
it's like crew activity, team building, whatever. But that.
And then who chose
Travis, calm
Night of the
yourself.
Killer Androids? There's so many better movies already now that, like, who in 100 years or from now, 200, I don't know how far in the future this is, who is choosing a movie called Night of the Killer Androids?
And you said it. You said it. How many movies does Travis say they have?
50,000 movies in the database.
Jesus.
I was just trying to think, like, if it's that broad, like they're gonna have some from every category, but still.
Yeah,
that
but
seems
whoever's choosing
obscure.
like weekly movie night movie,
Yeah, agreed.
why would they have chosen
No,
that?
I guarantee it's the guy, like, unless they announce, like, oh, Archer got to pick this week, it's me. Like, the guy who's organizing this is me.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay,
It's like the head
here's
of
this
the head of
movie.
the AV club.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. No, you're really going to hate this one. Trust me. This is fantastically bad.
So Malcolm said about the movie, quote, "Those were 2 hours of my life I'd rather have back." A sentiment I think everybody who has made it to episode 11 of this show can understand.
There was a really bad anime series I was watching once, and of course I would immediately, after finishing an episode, would go on to Reddit to like see what other people were saying, and just extricating like how horrible everything was. And one guy had the best comments, like, "I hate everything about this episode. See you next week."
So we are then in Archer's quarters, where a crew member named crew member Daniels, who it's not clear he didn't have pips. Instead of pips, he had like two little pins, one that was like a backslash and the other was two sides of a triangle upside down.
Okay.
So I
maybe
assume he's just enlisted.
Yeah, maybe he's not an officer. Maybe, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, he's not an officer. So crew member Daniels brings breakfast to Archer and is questioning him in a very weirdly suspicious manner about why they decided to change course. And Archer says it's because they want to go to a stellar nursery. So they get to the stellar nursery and they hail a transport vessel that's also in the area. And the captain of the vessel answers. His name is Captain Fraddock, and I love this man.
Okay.
So he's an alien. He's kind of green and scaly looking. And Archer hails him and he's like, "Hey man, like we're humans from Earth and we're out here to meet other alien species. We're so excited to meet you." Archer's like gives him his whole first contact speech. And this guy is like, "Yeah, what do you want?"
So what you just described is like, "Hey, we're out here to mix and mingle and meet some friendly adults. Are you down? Like, you swing?"
Not interested, bro. Got other shit to do.
Yeah, Archer's like, "So, like, what are you guys doing out here?" And he's like, "My job."
Getting iced.
But he does say that he's escorting a group of religious pilgrims to some sort of stellar event that only happens every 10 years, and it has religious significance to them. Archer then invites the captain and the passengers to come and visit the Enterprise, and the captain is like, "No, thank you. I do not want to come visit. Not interested." But he's like, "I'll ask the passengers if they're interested." And Archer is so excited, like so excited. He's got this huge grin, like they're gonna meet some aliens. So the Pilgrims come on board. There are it appears to be 3 different alien species. Although I guess they could be the same alien species and just look and dress differently. The first are a bunch of white guys that have face bumps that look a whole lot like Phloxes.
Okay.
But they do not appear to be the same species. They all wear gray jackets. The second are also white guys that have spikes on their chin and eyebrows. They look kind of familiar. I wasn't sure I'd seen them before, but it's possible that you guys have seen them before. So you'll have to let me know next week. They all wore reddish robes with a hood. And then the third group are all black guys that have some slight bumps above their nose and wear purple hooded cloaks. So real weird that we're just getting like white people aliens and black people aliens.
Weird.
Yeah.
One group only tells truth, one group only tells lies, and the third group alternately tells truth and lies.
And they're all men, or at least appear to be men to our human eyes.
Thank you for defending the gender identity of these made-up races on this
You're welcome, Bill.
Thank you.
So one of the gray jacket pilgrims gives Archer a gift, and Archer is like, what is this? And he's like, it's a clock. It measures time since the beginning of the universe.
Kick ass.
So we then cut to the bridge with a pretty cute scene. Malcolm and Travis are on the bridge, and Hoshi comes in. And Travis is like, ooh, did you get to meet any of the aliens? And Malcolm's like, oh yeah, tell us about them. Like, what were they like? And she's like, oh yeah, I got to see 2 of them. I ran into them. They were taking a tour of the ship. And Malcolm is like, should we be giving them a tour of the ship? Like, we have some pretty sensitive technology on the ship. Around? Well, no, she said they were taking a tour.
They got a
so
tour.
Presumably somebody was.
He said, should we be giving them? I thought you said, shouldn't we be giving them?
No.
Tour? Like they were just wandering around.
Are one of these races perhaps the aliens that hung people up on hooks and were draining their bodily fluids, who we never actually saw? No, it's an open house.
Malcolm's like, I hope they're not showing them the warp engine. And Hoshi's like, oh, they didn't seem like they were here to steal military secrets. I'm sure it's fine.
I'm sure it's fine.
Fucking show.
That's how security works.
Yep. Oh my god, this fucking show.
Which it's kind of funny because, wait a second, isn't Malcolm the security guy? Like, why isn't he out there like keeping an eye on them?
Why didn't somebody tell him that aliens are coming on the ship and maybe he should, pay attention instead of fucking around on the bridge?
Well, he has to go do something. So he leaves the bridge, which means we get to find out who is next in command. Is it Travis or Hoshi? You guys want to take a guess?
Who's
next in chain of command?
Hoshi, I would assume.
No, it is Travis.
What? What?
Okay. I also thought it was going to be Hoshi because Hoshi just seems more experienced.
But Hoshi has Travis is an ensign and Hoshi has a whole...
No, they're both ensigns.
Like a whole Starfleet background. Oh, maybe she got bumped down? Because remember, there's that whole thing that Christian told us about her, like, she has some backstory that I guess we'll see at some point where
I don't remember this at all.
This is my fault for trying to apply any kind of logic. I went with Hoshi because she seems like an older person. She seems like... Yeah,
she seems like more experienced, like she's been around longer, and Travis just seems so young. He really seems like he's right out of Starfleet.
Right.
But no, Travis is next in command. So Malcolm leaves and gives Travis the bridge, and Hoshi looks at him and looks over at the captain's chair, and she's like, "You gonna do it?" And he's like, I can't. And she's like, yeah, you can. Like, it's your bridge right now. Like, you could go sit in that captain's chair. And he's like, well, maybe just for a second. And it is so cute. He goes and he sits in that chair and he has the biggest smile on his face. Oh. It's like the biggest, goofiest smile. He is like, yeah, this is nice.
Again, Travis is an 8-year-old.
And then Malcolm just comes back in and is like, can I, he's like, ensign? And Travis is like, right, sorry, and goes back to his station.
Fucking shit, man.
So Malcolm ruining all their fun.
Yeah,
and now
Malcolm's a jerk.
we get to see some of the alien tour. They are split into 2 tour groups. The first group, Malcolm would not be happy to know, is getting a tour of the warp reactor.
From who?
From Trip. Trip is giving them a tour of the warp reactor, and he is giving them Warp Reactor 101. He's telling them what the warp reactor is, how it works, like showing them all the different pieces, like real, in the way that he's like so
real
proud,
details.
like giving him all the details about it. And then
here's a printout of how it works and how you can build your own on your planet.
And here's the worst vulnerability of it. Really the only vulnerability. It's right here. Let me show you. And what you have to do is you have to push this button while you hit that, and then take a screwdriver and bang this button. And the whole thing blows up. It's really weird. Fun fact.
So one of the aliens like listens patiently to his whole speech, and then he's like, I'm actually a warp field theorist.
Amazing.
Trip. Oh my god, Trip, you're so bad.
Does Trip do the classic white guy talking to foreigners thing where he speaks very slowly?
It's honestly, so he doesn't do the speaking slowly, but he is like giving them like simple metaphors, like very much dumbing this down so they can understand it. And this guy is a warp field theorist.
So this is going great.
He thinks it's still the aliens from Civilization who were pre-warp and had no idea.
So
Jesus.
He then takes the tour group to show them something else. And one of...
Okay, let's leave, I think. But, like, that was his big thing. Like, what else is gonna...
One of the aliens asked him, quote, how do you regulate positron flow in your dilithium matrix? So Trip was like, oh, well, let me show you, and kind of took him to see it. So that's why he was showing them something else.
Okay.
But as he was taking them to show them the other thing, one of the spiky face aliens sort of suspiciously broke off from the group and went over and like surreptitiously messed with one piece of the warp engine equipment.
Fantastic. So this is going well.
Oh my god, they're so bad.
They're so bad at their jobs.
Yeah, I mean, you'd really think that they would like have security going with the tour, like keeping an eye on things, especially when they're like looking at the warp engine. He literally like opens up a panel and like takes like a big tube thing and just like tears it off, like just breaks it.
Do you suppose that this is a counterintelligence operation by Starfleet? We're going to send, like, this is not our best ship. We're going to pretend it's our best ship.
Yeah.
And we're going to send it out so that everybody in the universe thinks that we're idiots. Meanwhile, we've got the real Enterprise that we're the woman who is the best at linguistics is going to be on this ship. What if they're all
actually in a holodeck and none of this is really happening? And this is they don't realize it. They don't realize it, and it's all a test to see if they would be good as this crew.
As Star Trekking? I think this is a PSYOP operation by Starfleet that they are sending this ship out, and it's
Section 13.
So
I have.
Oh, I know what that is now. Sorry, I did recently get to that episode of DS9. So.
Oh God.
I had a question, but now I've forgotten it. It's
right.
probably... Oh, yeah. Malcolm. Meanwhile, Malcolm, is like, but shouldn't we be figuring out what's going on? Like, is it secure to give them a tour? And then he, leaves the bridge, goes off for 5 minutes, and then comes back to yell at Travis. But, he should be looking into this.
He is the security guy. He should, call up Captain Archer and be like, hey, I really think
What
it would
the
be a
fuck?
good idea if we had some security guys following these tours around. I bet Archer would be fine with it.
This show feels like the foreign ripoff of Star Trek. Like, if you found out that, in the mid-70s, Bulgaria decided to make their own Star Trek and like, publish it and write it. This feels like the Bollywood version of Star Trek, where, like, they ripped off just, they took the footage of the ship going through and, although the show would be a million times better if it was the Bollywood. If there were dance numbers.
Yes.
It would be a million times
if
better.
Archer beat the Klingons in a dance-off, best Star Trek ever.
Ever.
You know what? That could happen on the show, and I would not be surprised. At this point, anything can happen.
I'm going to put that in a Two Truths and a Lie.
So the second tour group is in medical. And Phlox is showing them that MRI machine that we saw way back in Terra Nova.
Yep.
He's doing this by just having them go into the machine one by one and scanning them and then being like, hey, you're looking real healthy there.
Jesus Christ, Phlox. Does it come up, does the body scan of the aliens come up like when you go into a butcher shop and you see the scan of like what each touch of the...
You joke, but there is actually like a screen, so like above it with like like the body with like different colors on it. And while they're doing that, suddenly like the ship is hit by something. It is a plasma storm. The systems are going awry. They're like apparently like a bolt strikes the warp manifold, leading to an antimatter cascade, according to Trip. He's freaking out because if the cascade reaches the warp reactor, the entire ship is going to blow up.
Is the one alien like, dude, just push the green button here. It's going to be fine.
But suddenly the cascade just stops, and Archer tells Trip, good work. And Trip is confused and responds, it wasn't me, sir. We then
I'm sorry, Jamie. Can you pause for 1 second? I've forgotten. Who are these aliens? Where did they come from?
They're
Why
pilgrims.
are there 3 groups?
They're
religious.
pilgrims going. There's some event at the Stellar Nursery, some stellar event that only happens once every 10 years, and it's important to their religion.
Okay.
So they're making a pilgrimage to see it.
Do you know who you want to invite onto your ship and reveal all your super secrets? Religious pilgrims that you have no idea what the religious tenets are.
So Trip says that the antimatter cascade really should have reached the warp engine, and it would have blown up the whole ship, except that there was a conduit that was disconnected. And he doesn't know who disconnected it. Nobody on his staff will take credit. So Archer and him go and talk with the alien ship, and the captain says that no one there will take credit for it either. By this time, the crew or the pilgrims have already returned to their own ship. And then, so Archer's really confused. He's trying to figure out what's going on here. And meanwhile...
Do they not have security cameras in the warp core? I feel like that's
Maria,
a thing
have you ever seen a security camera on any Star Trek show ever? Star Trek...
Yes!
Star Trek has not invented the security camera.
They had them... I just watched an episode of Deep Space Nine where they fucked up... They screwed up, they tampered with security footage.
Mm. Yeah, that is
feels unusual.
That is one of the weird things that
I think it is unusual.
That they sort of don't, which I brought up before, is like when they're having first contact, there's never somebody standing there with a camera, like, to record these events. But yeah.
Right, and like, but no, also, there was the snowman. Remember the snowman? Yeah. They had a camera watching Trip and Travis build a fucking snowman.
On Next Generation.
Yeah, no.
Have you ever seen a security camera?
No,
they could have avoided so many problems with security cameras.
That's one of the things, is that the computer is sort of aware of everything, and they can like ask the computer to isolate things and stuff. But video is not something that exists.
But it's not video. Yeah, it's weird.
So Archer is trying to figure this all out, and then crew member Daniels, he comes running down the hallway after Archer, and he's like, hey, Captain, I need to chat with you. And Archer's like, I do not have time for you. You were just like the guy who brings me my breakfast.
Damn.
I'm pretty busy. I mean, he doesn't say that, but he's very clearly like, I don't have time for you right now. I'm very busy with something. And then Daniels just blurts out, one of those pilgrims is actually a Suliban soldier in disguise named Silic. And which, by the way, is
Check
the
his ID.
Silic is the Suliban from the pilot that Archer had the fight with in the phasey room.
Oh.
And Archer is like,
are we supposed to know that? Does he know that?
I think Archer replies with, "Oh, that's the one I fought." Like there's like an exposition line. I took it out because it was not a good line. I was like, it makes more sense for me to just tell you that.
Got it.
But that is how we know. I personally did not.
So he knows.
That. Yeah, Archer somehow recognizes the name of the Suliban.
Ensign Exposition runs in. It says, "Prithee, my lord."
So Archer is like, "What the fuck? How do you know that? Come to my ready room right now. Like, we need to talk." And he's like, "No, not to your room. Let's go to my room." And Archer's like, "Okay." And so we get to see what the crew member quarters look like. Okay. It's a bit cramped. There's a bunk bed, there's some storage and a small desk. It's very cluttered with stuff, as you'd expect with two people living in this small space. Sure. It was very interesting because I've actually been on a working military submarine. I got a tour of it many years ago.
I thought you were about to say I've been on a starship.
And
it wouldn't surprise me. That's from Jamie.
This room looked a whole lot like the crew member rooms on a submarine, although actually slightly bigger. My memory could be wrong because this was a good 20 years ago, but or 25 years ago probably at this point. But I remember those quarters being very, very, very tiny. These were like a slightly bigger version, but it looked a lot like it, to the point where when I saw it, I was like, I wonder if the designers of the show actually looked at submarines.
This show definitely has a very submarine feel. Like we talked about before, the uniform and stuff. It definitely has a very submarine feel.
So anyways, I was just excited to get to see crew member quarters.
Yeah, that's cool.
Daniels then tells Archer he is not a member of Starfleet. And
Archer's like, yeah, there's a bunch of you guys around here. There's Phlox. I'm not so sure about Hoshi.
And Archer is like, who the fuck are you?
The fuck are you?
If you are not Starfleet. And then he drops 3 words that sure you guys are going to be so excited to hear. Temporal Cold War.
Yes! We've all been waiting for it.
He says he works for a far future organization that makes sure that people like Silic do not interfere with historic events. And then he takes out this device and he presses a button and suddenly the room is gone. And in its place are a whole bunch of colorful squiggly lines and circles like spinning all around them.
How amazing, Maria, would it be if he said, "You see, I jump back through time, making sure that that historical events happen the way they should happen.
The way they should.
Hoping each time that the next jump will be the one that takes me back home."
Wait, what is that from?
That is that's the premise of Quantum Leap.
Okay.
Is that he jumps through time periods.
Is sort of, it does kind of sound like that's what it is, right? Like they go back in time to pivotal moments to make sure that something that's wrong goes right.
And then Captain Archer goes, "Listen here, you little shit."
I know from fixing time. And you, sir, are no time fixer.
Now I'm actually wondering if there's like some fun Easter egg lines in this episode that I missed.
Could
you
be.
guys will have to
I hope so. I mean,
this show is not cool enough to do that.
It's not. Yeah, I don't think it's clever enough, unfortunately.
So there is just this mess of colorful lines and circles just like spinning all around them. And Daniels is just pointing some out. And so he says this is called a temporal observatory. And he's like pointed, he's like, that line, he's like pointed a little squiggly line and he's like, oh, see, that one is where I'm from 900 years from now. And that one over there is where the Suliban are from. And see over here, this squiggly line is when the pyramids of Giza were being built. And Archer's just nodding along. Like it all makes perfect sense. And it is truly just like complete chaos.
He says, I'm from a show called Star Trek Enterprise, and I need to make sure this show doesn't have... Everything about this show is fucked. You don't understand.
Something is wrong.
We get a whole bunch of exposition. Daniel says that Daniel says that Silic is the one that prevented the warp engine breach. And he says that Daniels, was sent there to capture Silic. But he needs Archer's help because in order to do this, he needs to tie in his equipment into the ship's sensor grid, which will require the captain's command codes.
Great.
Okay.
Fantastic.
Wait. Silic fixed the ship? Saved the ship?
Silic saved the ship.
The other guy, or is that the other guy, or is that the guy we're talking to now?
Silic is the Suliban.
Silic is
and
the
Silic
Suliban.
saved the ship.
Say
Yes.
that 3 times fast.
Okay, so here's what I'm understanding is that there are 2 groups from the future.
Yes.
This
Hence
one
the
who's
Cold
advising
War.
the ones who's advising the Suliban, and the ones who want to make sure that things play out the way they were supposed to play out. Is that
Yeah,
what
so
I'm
according to Daniels, the Suliban are from 300 years in the future, and they're coming back in time to like mess stuff up somehow for some reason that we don't know. And then Silic is from an organization 900 years in the future. His job is to make sure the timeline stays uncorrupted.
Okay, so was the Enterprise supposed to be destroyed?
Not clear.
Okay, not asked, not answered. Fair enough.
Well, it might be answered. We don't know yet.
Archer is not just going to hand over his captain's command codes to just anyone.
Thank goodness.
He is skeptical.
I was by no means convinced.
If you
that was
think
the
I'm
case.
going to give you the code 1 Alpha 1 Ranger 1562 just because you asked me to.
Archer says to Daniels, "You are asking me to capture someone who just saved my ship. Why should I trust you?" And Daniels responds, "You like your scrambled eggs soft. Have I ever brought them to you any other way?"
What?
And that is good enough for Archer.
That is good enough. No. I don't believe you. That's good enough for him. He's like, I made you eggs, and the guy is like, fine.
To be fair, Daniels also while doing this gives him a very smug, like he says this line and then gives him the smuggest look. Like, am I right?
Okay, this show is breaking. This is breaking the goofy meter. Now, I know that I made the joke previously when I talked about Trip getting pregnant that I was literally making this episode up. Jamie, you're making this episode up.
How is this? No, this does not make any sense. I'm sorry. I know I keep saying
I'm going to wake up in a
matter,
hospital bed 2 months from now and say, "That semi-truck, man. You're lucky to be alive." And I'm going to be, what were you talking about while you were out? Something about Suliban and this fucking show, man.
So Archer then goes and talks to Trip and T'Pol, and he tells them what's going on because he's going to need their help with this. They are quite skeptical, especially T'Pol.
T'Pol immediately does the Vulcan neck pinch to knock him out and says, "Medical team to bridge, emergency."
Yeah.
I mean,
Also,
she is extremely skeptical. I mean, she is given Scully.
You can imagine.
She says that the Vulcans have looked into time travel and found no evidence that it is even possible for it to exist. And she also, later she's talking to Trip, and she tells him, so if Daniels really is a time traveler, then why doesn't he just go one more day in the past and prevent Silic from boarding? Which is a great question. It is not answered. I could not use this for never asked, never answered because it was asked. It just wasn't answered. The writers thought of this. The writers of the show saw a big hole in their plot, decided to bring it up, and then never talk about it again.
So they just don't answer?
It's never answered.
This
It is asked
show.
and never answered.
I know that we had a healthy debate about what to title this podcast, and I campaigned hard for Enterprise splitting. But can we please, at this point, retitle it "This Fucking Show"?
This fucking show, man.
A bunch of the Pilgrims now come back to the Enterprise to observe the whatever the like star plume event thing is from the mess hall of the Enterprise, because previously Archer had invited them. I guess it's like a better viewing space than on the transport ship. And so they're kind of having like a little reception, and everyone's like waiting for the star event to happen. And Archer is just walking around this event, glaring suspiciously at everyone. And even Phlox realizes something's going on, and he's like asking Archer, "Are you okay?" And Archer's just being like, "There's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong. Like I am acting totally normally." Archer's like, why would you think something's going on with me? Like, he is acting so incredibly suspicious and weird, and yet everyone's like, "Are you okay?" And he's like, yeah, I'm fine. Why would you even ask me that?
Jesus Christ. Eventually things got so bad that even Phlox realized the situation was awkward.
Yeah, Phlox is like, "Man, you're being kind of creepy."
And meanwhile, like, this whole time, Daniels is just everybody being just Archer, T'Pol, and Trip, because they're the only ones that know he's from the future, keep asking him questions, and he's just giving really weird, evasive answers. So we get questions like, "Are you human? More or less. Are you really from Illinois? I'm from a place called Illinois, just not the one you're familiar with. And will Earth still be around in 900 years? That depends on how you define Earth." And Trip also asks him, "How far will the Enterprise travel tomorrow?" Where he gets this look like, "Why the fuck are you even asking me that?" Apparently...
Are they talking to ChatGPT at this point?
Apparently, the engineering team has a pool going every day where they guess how far the ship is going to travel, which sounds so boring.
Particularly since
like every single day, they all try to guess how far they're going to travel that day. That is how they are keeping themselves entertained on this ship. They have 50,000 movies available.
You wake up first thing.
And this is what they're doing with their time.
First thing you do, you play Wordle. It's,
Yeah, it's like, you come into the office, there's you're just trying to entertain yourself. You're sick of your life, You know how it is.
Wait. So what bothers me about this is I feel like this is a really fun opportunity for a show that is essentially a prequel. Prequel. Yeah. They don't ask any questions where we could get some fun fan servicey answer. And I just feel like it's a missed opportunity.
Yeah, that's true. That's a great point.
But no, they don't go there at all. So Daniels is in engineering with Trip and T'Pol, doing whatever he needs to do to put attach his sensor stuff. And they need to attach something to a spot that's sort of behind some panels. So instead of opening up those panels like a normal person, Daniels puts like some weird device on his hand and then just walks straight through the wall.
Okay.
Archer gets back to his quarters, where who is waiting for him? It's Porthos.
Yes!
Yay!
And Porthos
is
says,
barking.
"I'm here to explain everything to you. You don't understand."
Porthos is barking, and Archer's like, yeah, I know. I get it. Your breakfast is 2 hours late. I haven't had breakfast either. And so he's like quickly trying to like get Porthos's food, because Porthos is like freaking out. He needs his breakfast.
That's right.
And then he puts the food down, but Porthos is still kind of barking instead of eating the food. And Archer's like, well, this is weird. Like, what's going on? And then he's like, oh, it's cheese. You want cheese, huh? Like, you're not getting any cheese.
Right.
But no, that's not it. Porthos, something's not right. He starts to growl. Oh. And Archer realizes someone is likely in the room.
Guess. And
sure enough, a Suliban suddenly appears. He had been invisible.
Yeah, Porthos, good boy.
He was a good boy.
What a good boy.
And so Silic tells
And he
Archer...
wouldn't have gotten away with it, too, if it hadn't been for that meddling dog.
Meddling dog.
Silik tells Archer that somebody on the ship is trying to find him, and he wants Archer to tell him who it is. And Archer's, like, not gonna fall for this. So he tells Archer that the other guy is lying to him and actually works for another faction that is there to alter history, not protect it. So presumably he is the one that is trying to protect the timeline. And he says that the other guy was actually the one that caused the solar storm that almost destroyed the ship, but lucky for Archer that Silik was there to prevent it.
To fix it. Right. Okay.
So Silik keeps just being like, tell me who it is. Who is the person who is looking for me? And Archer won't tell him. And then at that moment, T'Pol calls Archer and it's just like, hey, so we finished all those modifications that Mr. Daniels suggested.
Jesus Christ. This fucking crew, man.
Oops. I mean, there's no way that she would have known.
No, but Archer...
There's no protocol.
Is there a way to, as the captain, to get a message from your team without using speakerphone?
Oh yeah, that's a great point.
Never mentioned. Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah.
Honestly, it's been a problem to me for all of Star Trek.
Yeah. All of Star Trek.
There was a while when I was first watching TNG where I was like, oh, I think somehow they have something in their ear and only the one person is hearing it. But then it really seems like everybody hears it. It just seems like a bad system.
No, the whole system of interpersonal communication, because in original series they had the communicator and you had to use that, and then it gets into TNG where they have you can either tap it and say computer, or you can say computer, or you can not say computer, and the computer recognizes what you're saying at any time.
Silik doesn't need Archer anymore, so he shoots him. And leaves.
So bad at their jobs.
When he leaves, Porthos is real upset. He's whining and like licking Archer's face.
No.
We know it's real sad. So back in engineering, Daniels suddenly realizes that Silik is there somewhere but hiding. So he tells everybody to evacuate. And then as everybody else is evacuating, Silik shoots Daniels. And Daniels sort of like, after being shot, he phases in and out of existence and then just sort of blows up.
Okay. Is it like gross? Is it like...
No, it's like no, it's more like a video game where then the bad guy just poofs. Like there's no body left. Okay. But it is like a weird, like he blows up and then just is not in existence.
All right. So Daniels is dead. Okay.
Daniels is dead.
All right.
Supposedly. Sure looked like he was dead.
Or he poofed back to the future.
Yeah, I mean,
a big white door opens up and Al comes out and goes, "Sam, you don't understand."
I feel like it was definitely implied that he died, but it was also real unclear because it was real weird. Like it's possible he just somehow poofed to another existence.
Okay.
Sure. So Trip, T'Pol, and Phlox go to Archer's quarters and give him a hypospray to revive him. Then Archer goes to Daniel's quarters to get the temporal observatory device, but it's missing. And so he thinks that Silik probably took it. Mm-hmm. Trip notices that somebody is trying to bypass something at one of the launch bays. So he tells Archer about it, and Archer calls security. So when he gets over there, Malcolm and some other security guys.
Security?
Yeah, well,
they're like, it seems like, and I don't know how they know this, but they think that Silik somehow slipped through this wall panel, and they said it will take some time for them to remove the panels. But Arch is like, no need. And he has that walking through walls device that Daniels has had. So he puts it on, and Archer just walks right through the wall.
Cool.
And then there's a fight.
How cheesy is this effect? Is it like...
It's fine. It's not that bad. Yeah, he like will put his arm out. It's like the device goes over his knuckles of his hand, and then he sort of puts it out towards the wall, and then like walks in after it.
Okay.
Oh,
So then Archer and Silik have a fight at the shuttle bay. At one point, Archer sort of gets Silik and has his weapon pointed at him, and instead of shooting Silik, turns the weapon to shoot the weapon out of Silik's hand. Which I'm like, why didn't you just shoot him? It's not like if you put your weapon on stun, it would have been fine. But Archer sort of acts like, no, I don't want to kill you. But I'm like, no, you really should have shot him.
Yeah.
Archer has killed a lot of Suliban. Let's be clear.
Yeah. And Silik, meanwhile, is like turning invisible. Archer's losing him. And then at some point, Silik opens the launch bay doors, and Archer's almost sucked out of the doors. The walking through walls device gets sucked out into space.
Of course it does. It would have been too convenient for them to be able to
that
keep
device
that.
is gone.
Mm-hmm.
And then Silik reappears and just sort of jumps out the door into space like he's like diving out of a plane. Like
he just flies out of the...
All right.
Yeah.
But intentionally.
Yeah, he intentionally flies out, and then he is picked up by a passing Suliban shuttle.
Sure.
All right.
All right.
We
are
This is my new reaction to the show. Okay.
Fine. You've broken us. This show has broken us 11 episodes in.
Then the sun explodes and Earth is consumed. Next scene, they're on Earth. Okay.
All right.
So we are almost at the end.
It's like I'm listening to a child lie to me. Okay.
You can tell me the story, okay.
So we are almost at the end. Archer is in his quarters looking intently at the clock that the pilgrims gave to him. And T'Pol asks him if he knows how it works, and he says, not a clue. He then
Do you
heads
know how
to the
this
bridge.
ship works? Not a clue.
Nope.
Do you know what happened in this episode? Not a clue.
Archer then goes to the bridge and he asks Malcolm to assign new quarters to Daniel's roommate and to seal off that cabin. We then get a close-up of the door of the sealed-off room while ominous music plays. The end.
Again, it's like AI is writing this show.
Okay. Did we establish that Daniels was the good guy?
I think it's assumed, but I would say not necessarily. I don't think we definitely necessarily know for sure, but I think it's still assumed that Daniels was the good guy.
But the Suliban prevented
Suliban are
the
bad
ship
guys.
from being destroyed.
Yeah, the Sulibans are the ones that saved the ship.
Oh, Lord.
We don't know why.
Okay, well, if you would like to go straight into Never Asked, Never Answered, we don't know at no point do we learn what Silik was doing there. He definitely takes the temporal observatory device, so I think it's sort of maybe implied that that's what he was there for, but it's confusing because he didn't even know somebody was after him until partway through the episode, and when he found out was because he says like on his sensors he discovered that there was another time traveler. So it's very weird because if he didn't know that the other guy was there when he was there, then why was he even there?
This is episode 10 of the show. I know
11. I believe 11.
After however many episodes since the pilot, who fucking even remembers the temporal Cold War?
So, it's still really unclear because Silik did save the Enterprise, and it almost, to me, seems like if Daniels was there to make sure the timeline wasn't changed, and Silik's only change to the timeline appeared to be saving the Enterprise, was Daniels there to blow up the Enterprise?
Blow up the Enterprise?
It's extremely unclear. Again, never asked, never answered.
I'm gonna go out on a limb and say this show is badly written.
I mean,
Nothing makes sense. And
that is quite a controversial position you've decided to take.
I don't understand. Having watched all of these episodes, some of them more than once, nothing makes sense.
Yeah, okay.
But going back to my overall impression of the episode, it was fine. It was not the worst episode.
This is the statement of
It's fine.
someone who is
I
being
die all the time.
someone who is being starved to death and is finally given a roasted rat to eat. It's being cooked. This is okay.
I mean, that's really all I can say about it. Like, it was fine. There were some fun scenes. I really liked Daniels. He was a fun character. I kind of hope that he's not dead and he somehow comes back. Or maybe we get we could also get like a past version of him, I guess.
Oh, yeah, I guess there's time
Lord
travel.
Almighty.
So.
But I mean, yeah, it was fine. It wasn't terrible. It wasn't the worst episode we've seen. It wasn't the best.
So Jay,
fine.
like, what is a worse episode than
Terra Nova?
Okay, Terra Nova. Okay, so
and
that's
whatever the episode we watched last week.
Well, I would
Let
describe...
me tell you, watching this
Well, we
right
can't
after
remember.
watching the episode from last week, this one was so much better.
Okay.
Oh, that's fair.
I would describe Fortunate Son as nothing. Like, nothing happened. It was just...
Well, it sounds like this is something is happening.
Yeah, things are
And I
happening.
would-
There's some funny lines.
Quick roundtable. Terra Nova is the worst episode so far. Do we agree on that?
It was not good. Fortunate Son was somehow even more boring, though.
Okay, fair enough. That's
I'm
a good,
now trying to remember what
Agreed.
happened again. I can remember Terra Nova. I can barely remember Fortunate Son.
Yeah, I agree.
All right.
But in terms of like terrible writing, I think that was. I mean, like the terrible.
Yeah. But it was at least interesting in that we got to
Yes.
argue about the terrible writing, which I
Right.
think
But
puts it
in-
a step above Fortunate Son.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, no, Fortunate Son is, as like I said, a big bucket of nothing. There's,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
So the Porthos good boy scale. Porthos was the best boy this episode. He was the best boy. He warned Archer about the invisible Suliban.
Porthos actually recognized that inviting aliens onto the ship was a bad idea.
Yeah. Porthos is more qualified than Malcolm.
Is Porthos in Section 13? Is he the secret head of...
If Porthos had known earlier that they were just giving aliens a tour, he'd have been yelling.
There was back in the days of the internet, there was a list somebody put up, like rules I will follow if I ever become an evil overlord.
Yeah.
And one of the rules for being an evil overlord is my council of advisors will include an 8-year-old of average intelligence. Any flaws in my master plan that he detects will be corrected immediately.
That's right.
And then also, after Archer was shot, it was so cute when Archer was stunned, and Porthos was so sad. He was whining and licking his face like he was trying to revive him. It was real cute.
That's the best. Is he doing chest compressions on him?
Which actually is another thing about Suliban is like Suliban could have killed Archer in that moment, and instead he stunned him. Which again, it makes me think like this episode definitely implies that Daniels is a good guy, Suliban are bad. But
Right.
I kind of left this episode feeling like maybe it's a red herring.
Well, and maybe we're look. I know that most of these episodes don't make sense, but maybe this one, maybe those are unanswered questions for a reason. Like we will find out. I don't have a whole lot of confidence in that, but it does feel like it's possible at least. Whereas there are some of the other never asked, never answered, which we'll never know. We know that for sure. Here it feels like there's something that they might be trying to do.
DS9 was emotionally equipped to deal with these moral quandaries, especially with like Garrick, because Garrick was like, "We're gonna do. You're not prepared for what we're gonna need to do to win this war. Nothing in this show has prepared us for any kind of moral quandary or even a sense of basic cause and effect."
Well, it's also like, I'm not even sure I know the characters well enough to be like, oh, he is gonna do the right thing.
Right.
I mean, you do just because of how they're setting them up as characters, but you don't know I don't know, it just doesn't feel like they've
This
really
is the fascinating thing to me, is like, okay, so Next Generation is a really great show that I really enjoy. Deep Space Nine is a morally complex show that I engage with on various levels. Voyager is what Voyager is a fucking crazy show. This show is bad. This show learns nothing from the lessons of these shows.
But here's what I will say, and I believe that if we were doing the first season of Next Generation without knowing the rest of Next Generation, we would have some pretty bad things to say.
I would argue that the first, like, handful of episodes of Next Generation were far worse than what we have seen so far on this show.
But this is not Next Generation. This is the fourth Star Trek show.
Yes, like, at this point, it should be better.
But that happened with Deep Space Nine, too. The first season of Deep Space Nine wasn't great. I mean, it wasn't great, but it was not bad. I would say it wasn't bad. As somebody who watched it for the first time recently, I was pulled in immediately. The first couple episodes were a little rough, especially because I think they were recycling Next Generation scripts. Weirdness.
So it sometimes felt a little off, but it was not bad. The first couple episodes of Next Generation were real rough.
Well, here's what I will say. And I don't disagree with any of what you're saying, Bill. I do know that, like, there are people in the world who have told me, you've got to get through the first season, and it does get good. I don't know that that's true or not, fine. Right? But that I am willing to believe it just because there is a history of first seasons being not as great. And, you know, I'm not saying by any stretch.
They could do something real interesting with this temporal Cold War, and we might be, like, slagging on it now because it sounds like a bad idea.
And I have no confidence in that right now. And I also do not believe, like, objectively, even if it gets to the best that it's going to get, I don't think it would be at the level of either Next Generation or Deep Space Nine, or even close. Do you know what I mean? Yep. Like, I think it can get good, but not to the level of, like, actual Star Trek.
We might be able to get to, like, second season of TNG level as, like, the highest.
Yeah, that's kind of the max, you know? I'm setting a low bar.
Setting all of that aside, I'm just saying, in my opinion, this show has not reached a level of narrative competence.
No, I think you're right.
It has other. I feel like it's one of the funnier Star Trek shows, at least. Okay, I'm saying this as somebody who's only seen a handful. I do feel like it's trying to be funny. It doesn't take itself real seriously, which I like.
Yep.
And that can be really fun, I think, if they do it well.
Yeah, and there's some very good actors in it. Like, I think they are all.
Oh, I absolutely agree.
Oh, I like the actors a lot.
Shit out of this,
and
scripts that are all really
so excited to be there.
Yeah.
When I was scanning over that oral history book, every one of them could not believe that they're going to be on a Star Trek show. They are so excited to be there. They are ready to make the show as good as it can be, and you can tell.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But I think they've been done a disservice by poor writing.
Trip is not a great character, like we've talked about. Nope. Trip is the fucking actor who plays Trip. He is
so good.
He is trying to spin gold out of the straw that he has been given. And
honestly, as is Scott Bakula. Yeah. Like, he's trying, and they're making him so unlikable as a character, but you're still kind of like him because, you know,
all right,
because he's good.
Okay.
So, moving on to the sexy scale, which I don't even know why we're doing this anymore. How sexy was the episode?
The softy section.
The saucy section
The
from
first episode, the pilot really set us up for a fucking horny Star Trek
I know,
that we are
which is-
not delivering on.
The problem is, like, we came up with these segment ideas when we'd only seen the pilot. And we were like, clearly this show is trying to do weird, sexy things, so we should be able to, like, call out the weird, sexy thing in each episode. And there's been very little of that, actually.
I think we can move the saucy section to an as-needed option.
Yeah.
You know?
Well...
Move to table?
Seconded.
In that case, I will move on, because there was nothing sexy of note in this episode.
All right.
Technical difficulties, the most technobabble thing from the episode. Do you want to hear what Trip said about the warp?
Please. Please, God.
Yes.
The gravimetric field displacement manifold, commonly known as a warp reactor. When matter and antimatter collide, it creates a whole lot of energy. That energy is channeled through conduits, which leads to the nacelles, the two large glowing cylinders on the outside of the ship. Which, by the way, I already knew because you two taught me this in a previous episode.
Is this the point where the one alien says, "Yes, I'm a warp field deer"?
Yeah. And by the way, like, and I was sitting there like all smug. I was like, I already know what the nacelles are.
Our little girl is all grown up.
Yes!
Identifying nacelles.
And then what I later in the episode, Silik says that the reason he knew there was somebody on the ship looking for him was because he detected tachyon radiation, which from that exact same conversation, Maria, you had said, remember, if anybody mentions tachyon radiation, they're talking about time travel.
Yep.
And the second he said that, I was like, oh, time travel.
This is how it happens. It's an oral tradition. It is passed on generation to generation.
I was so proud. I'm like, I have learned so much from this podcast, from my co-host.
Learned is a wild word to use.
Very, very broad definition of that word.
Gather round, younglings. You ask how the chronoton fields work.
So
Oh, man alive.
I have some two new segments to add today, which will hopefully work better than the saucy scale.
Great.
The first one is What the Phlox? The creepiest thing that Phlox says every episode. So the first time after the tour, when all the pilgrims are going back to their ship, for some reason Phlox goes back to their ship with them. And before he does so, he says to Archer, thank you for letting me spend the night with these people.
Jesus Christ.
What?
Which is like the weirdest way to phrase that.
That's the saucy section right there.
It's everything that Phlox has been doing the entire episode.
And then later, he's talking to Archer about his night on the pilgrim ship, and he says they were like doing all these prayers and stuff, and that they did a series of exercises meant to purify the body. And then he giggles and says, I think I strained a leg muscle, but it was worth it.
I don't like it.
No, this is
I
the
don't
sexy
like-
scale. This is
I don't like it.
No,
I
this
don't
is
like it at all.
And I have another new segment because this has come up in the last couple episodes. This segment is called Yes, Chef. Just quotes that the characters say about Chef. Who Archer keeps referring to just as Chef, not as the chef, just Chef.
Just chef, yeah.
Because I believe that the chef has recurred on like the last couple, like the last two or three
Yes,
episodes.
he was definitely mentioned in the last one. Yep.
And in Breaking the Ice, I think.
He was mentioned again here twice, actually. The first time is after Archer invites the pilgrims to the ship. He turns to somebody, I can't remember who, on the bridge and says to have the chef prepare something. Like, he was going to say, like, have them prepare something, but then he sort of realized he didn't know what. I guess he wanted Chef to prepare, so Chef is going to prepare something.
Smash cut to the chef looking at the order. This fucking asshole.
Fucking guy. I'm making a peanut butter sandwich.
I'm gonna make his scrambled eggs extra runny.
Later, when the pilgrims come aboard, Archer tells them that Chef prepared a meal in their honor. Which they then are like, ooh, like they're a little awkward, and they're like, we're actually fasting right now. But then they're like, you know what? Why not? And I guess they decide to go to dinner. They're on a religious fast.
It's our cheat day.
Normal.
It's got we're abdicating ourselves before God, but it's our cheat day. Let's go ahead and have.
Because that is a completely normal thing for pilgrims. Who are currently on a pilgrimage to do. It's fine. It's fine.
This show is really challenging my understanding of what language and words mean.
So those were the two mentions of Chef. I feel like Chef has now become this reoccurring character that we never see but is mentioned in every episode. I need to know more about him. Is he Jeremy Allen White? I need to know.
No, here's my theory. Because the fact that they call him Chef makes me think that he is an android or he's just a happy robot behind one of the things. And at some point, you're just going to be like panning by and you're just going to see this huge robot like throwing knives and shit just in the back.
Here's a deep cut that I don't know if either of you will get. Every time they say Chef, I think of Lenny Henry from the 70s BBC series. Chef. Yes, Chef. Yeah.
I own that
That's
series.
who I imagine, yeah.
It's a great series. That's exactly right. But yes,
God.
I would accept Lenny Henry in that role too. But unfortunately, I don't think that's going to happen.
Maybe.
All right. Well, this is the segment of our show that we like to call Will's Holoracks. We all know that Riker is binging Enterprise in the holodeck, but we have some, let's say, Rikermendations, if you will, for what he could be doing instead. Literally anything else.
Literally anything else.
Literally anything. That's another great name for this podcast. Should we decide to change it? Literally anything else.
When we give up on Enterprise and just become the fully Diane Warren podcast, we can just call ourselves Literally Anything Else was good enough for anything other than this.
Bill, what is your recommendation today?
So my recommendation for this week is a movie that is equally nonsense, but has an internal logic that makes sense if you follow it. It is a movie I love. It is from the 80s. It is called Highlander, which stars Sean Connery and Christopher Lambert and Clancy Brown as immortal sword fighters who are traveling through time and trying to chop each other's heads off. It is a completely nonsense movie that I absolutely love, but they explain the rules and they follow the rules. And it's a well-shot movie. I highly recommend the movie Highlander. I just rewatched this movie. It is nonsense, but it has an internal logic and it follows it. And it is a thrillingly shot movie that I just rewatched. It's thoroughly entertaining.
Maria, what is your recommendation?
My recommendation,
Highlander 2: The Quickening.
That is not the name of Highlander 2, right?
That is the name of it.
Wait.
Yes. Mm-hmm. That is the name of the Quickening.
Wait, that's the actual name of Highlander 2?
The actual. Look, we can't get it as you
Oh my God.
We'll have to do bonus episodes on Highlander and Highlander 2 for the Patreon.
Yes.
First of all, we need to watch Night of the Lepus.
Oh my God.
Then we watch Highlander.
Okay.
When we do a live show, we'll do Highlander.
Oh God.
Sorry, Maria, what's yours?
So, no. I planned this before hearing what this episode was about, and it turns out it's highly appropriate. And it is also a movie, actually a series of movies. I've lost my co-hosts, ladies and gentlemen.
It's called the Highlander series. Highlander to
Highlander
the
1,
Quickening.
Highlander 2.
Highlander 3. The final game. I can't remember what the fuck is that.
The final countdown.
Wow, okay. Sorry, keep going.
This entire episode is just gonna be us giggling. Like,
Fucking
that's all
show
it
is breaking my mind. I can't even
breaking
deal
all
with
of
this.
us. Okay.
Oh, God.
So, my recommendation is very appropriate. I did not plan this in any way, and it's also related to what Bill just said. And it is also a movie, a series of movies from the 80s. My recommendation is something we just rewatched, the entire Back to the Future series.
Oh, fine.
Yes.
Now that, I'm sorry, you guys know I am not a huge time travel person, which is why this drives me crazy. Back to the Future is a perfect time travel movie, and even after all of this time, that shit holds up. It's beautifully executed, it's so fun to watch, and it still holds up to this day. Watch them. They're great. All three of them. Fantastic. Loved them.
The second one, there is no movie, like, I love all of these movies. The second one, there is no other movie like this where they literally go back to the first movie and try to reinsert themselves.
That second movie, I remember, blew my mind. I love that movie.
Crazy how great that movie is.
So good. Anyway, yes, loved them, and I still love them. Can't. And perfect time travel. None of this bullshit. It all works out as it should. Sort of on the similar lines of you, Bill. You know the rules work.
Yeah.
I love that every week. I have a lot of trouble coming up with my recommendation because I'm always trying to come up with something that's a little bit niche, like something that people may not know about.
I'm like Star Trek and Back to the Future.
You guys are out here with I recommend Highlander. I recommend Back to the Future. Some of the biggest movies ever.
I will stick up for wait until I get into my 30-minute discussion of why Flash Gordon is a great movie. It's coming.
We are doing a podcast about a 20-year-old show. Of course I'm gonna recommend 40-year-old things.
I am recommending something that is, let's see, 46 over 60 years old.
There we go.
Whoa.
I am recommending that you guys read books by Shirley Jackson.
Oh, okay.
Back in October, I'm in a book club where we read The Haunting of Hill House. And I have honestly never been interested in Shirley Jackson before because I always thought that it was going to be a very, typical, a family has to spend the night in a haunted house and, things are flying around and, there's blood on walls. That's what I thought it was going to be. But actually, it turns out it was a psychological thriller. Also, it is surprisingly very gay for something that was written in 1959.
Oh yeah, super queer.
I could not believe when I was reading it, and at first it kind of seemed, I'm like, are they going for some lesbian vibes? Yep. And I was like, no, there's no way. This is 1959, and then no, they go for it. These are awesome. These are women who are interested in other women.
Nice. I was actually when I was in high school, we did a production of The Haunting of Hill House, and even at that point, I picked up on,
nice.
That
and then
I have not read it.
The other Shirley Jackson book that I really like, that I just read recently, is We Have Always Lived in the Castle. It does not have any supernatural elements, but the horror comes from the way that humans treat other humans sometimes, especially people who are at the center of a scandalous story. It's amazing how, considering how long ago this book was written, how prescient it feels in terms of so this book has the main characters are some people who you kind of realize something very, very bad happened. There were lots of deaths, something bad happened a couple years prior, and now the people in the town treat them very terribly. And are kind of obsessed with them also, going by their house, almost like weird tourism. And it just reminded me of how, I don't know if you guys have heard the stuff that's been happening recently around that Baby Reindeer TV show, or Netflix show.
I'm aware of it, yes.
So the show is about, the guy who wrote it it's fiction, but based on a true situation that he was in with a stalker. And because people know that it's based on the fact that he actually had a stalker, people have tracked down this stalker. And like the Daily Mail interviewed her. She was just on Piers Morgan. And like this woman is very unwell. And it, like, reading this book and seeing that stuff happen, it just felt really prescient in terms of the way we look at these stories, like these true crime stories, and we don't really see the people in them as people. We see them as characters. And we try to treat them like that, but actually, like, the things that happen to them are really horrendous. Anyways, it just, We Have Always Lived in the Castle sort of turns that really into a horror.
Wow.
So I recommend Shirley Jackson, and specifically The Haunting of Hill House and We Have Always Lived in the Castle.
All right. Awesome.
And that's the episode. Thank you so much for listening. In 2 weeks, Maria will be watching the episode Silent Enemy.
Is this about farting?
I'll let you know.
With this show, you truly never know.
Archer must host a high-level dinner for Vulcan diplomats.
But
beans are on the menu.
Chef only has beans. Oh my god. All right.
Special thanks to K.O. Myers and Particulate Media for sound assistance. I'm so sorry, K.O., that you had to follow this. To our friend David for the beautiful cover art, and to John Stephen King for being the voice of our computer. If you liked the show, please rate, review, and subscribe on your podcast app of choice, and tell your friends about it. And in fact, if I could just break from the script a little bit, I do want to say, we are not some big corporate-run podcast. We don't have sponsors. We're not on a podcast
the
network.
hell you say?
They're all shocked.
It takes a ton of work and time to put together each of these episodes. And by we, I don't just mean the three of us that you guys know, but also K.O. Myers, our sound engineer, who mixes all of our episodes. And, I know we joked about a Patreon. We don't have a Patreon. But if you actually do want us to one day have a Patreon where we talk, I guess, about Highlander and Night of the Lepus, we need more listeners.
Dream job.
And we don't have a promotion budget. So the only way anybody learns about our show is by word of mouth.
That's kind of, if you're listening to this podcast, that's what I want you to think about. We put a lot of work into this.
You're depressing me, Jamie.
I'm so sorry, guys.
Questioning my life again.
Not to pull the curtain back, but we had like a real breakdown of like how much effort it goes into producing this podcast.
Which is why I wrote this whole paragraph to say during this episode. But truly, again, the only way people find out about this is by word of mouth. And we really think that we're putting together something that is very good, that we think a lot of people would like. And right now, it's probably not reaching those people. So when you finish this episode, if you could take like 10 seconds to think about your friend group and think if there's someone that you know
who you dislike. Start with them.
No.
Somebody that you know that Look, you think might actually enjoy this podcast. Just think if you can think of a name. If you can't think of anybody, that's fine, no big deal. But if you do think of someone, maybe send them a text and tell them about this show.
Jamie, in all sincerity, that's honestly beautiful. Thank you for putting that together.
Yes.
Because as much as I'm not enjoying watching this show, I'm enjoying talking to the two of you about this show, and I do want people to listen to this.
Yeah, and honestly, because we're doing editing, we listen to these episodes multiple times each, and I love it. Like, the three of us are constantly texting each other funny lines from our own episodes.
Right.
I really genuinely think this is a good show. Like, we are putting a good show together. And it would be nice if maybe a few more people were listening to it. But back to the real script, or real outro script. You can follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Enterprise Splaining, and on Blue Sky at Enterprise Splain. You can also email us any comments or questions, such as, you like your scrambled eggs soft. Have I ever brought them to you any other way? To enterprisesplaining@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you. Really, we've actually never received an email at that email address. I checked again yesterday just in case.
Dare to be the first. Send us an email from 900 years in the future telling us.
If you want to support this podcast, you can find us at Buy Me a Coffee at Enterprise Splaining. See you guys in 2 weeks.
Bye.
Bye.
Computer. End program.
I'm so angry about the eggs, you guys. I'm so angry about the eggs. I'm so angry. Like, he said I knew how to make your eggs, and Archer was just like, okay, I'm in.
This has been a broadcast of the ESO Network. Be part of the crew and help support our shows by donating to our ESO Patreon or by shopping at the TeePublic store, which can all be found at www.esonetwork.com. The ESO Network, your station for all things geek.